Let's
Morning,
start on the case numbers. 766. I think this is your highest ever. Something isn't working.
Yeah, well, we've been the most lockdown city. We're up to 235 days of lockdown now. So certainly keeping people locked in their homes is not stopping the cases from continuing to rise. But at the end of the day, we've been saying all along that we've got to get a plan out of all of this. Locking people up isn't the answer. The Victorian public is absolutely desperate to get out of this mess. They're devastated. We feel gutted at the moment, and we just need a way forward.
The plan is vaccinations, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think by and large, people are doing the right thing. People are fronting up. We are, not far off getting to those targets of 70 and 80%. But again, what we're seeing is the goalposts have moved. So if you compare New South Wales, where most of the things are opening up at 70%, we've got to wait until November 5, 80%. And even then, when we reach that 80% target, we still have a whole lot of restrictions. So Victorians still don't see a real end to lockdown and the ability for us to be able to get back our lives back, which we're desperately calling for.
Okay, we've got to look at these things together, I guess, not in silos, because we all agree that vaccination is the way back to freedom here in New South Wales, in Victoria, for the whole of Australia. But then you have these protests now for a fourth day. They seem to be protesting against any mandatory vaccinations, but you seem to be saying what's seeding this is the lockdown itself. So what is going on?
Oh, look, I mean, these protesters, there is absolutely, we don't need it. We simply don't need this. And I've spoke to people from the tourism industry that are devastated, others that are devastated. We're all devastated about this. We've got to be working together, but there isn't the leadership to be able to bring people together. I think the way it's been handled has been very, very poor. So we have had health workers, which we've been talking about being fully vaccinated for some time, that discussion coming after construction workers. So there seems to be a very political approach in terms of the way the mandating of vaccinations have been rolled out by the government. And it just simply doesn't make sense. The fact that the timing around the vaccination mandates for construction workers in such a quick period with a snap 2-week lockdown to the construction industry, where 32,000 people are now sitting at home, an end to those businesses and many of those builders and what have you that now can't work for 2 weeks. The government's not working with people, they're working against them. And we desperately need to get people vaccinated, but you've got to work with people, and that's not happening at the moment.
So what is the problem here then? Because we all agree that vaccination is the way out. Are you saying that, there was no consultation? I mean, to be honest, David, 18 months into a pandemic, we all know where this is heading. Should people really be surprised?
Well, the messaging could not be clearer. The National Cabinet has spoken about the 70 and 80% targets and getting people vaccinated. And I think by and large, people are doing the right thing. The issue of government's messaging and if you like, coming down on one industry and not another industry, it's ironic that, the only industry that was open was the construction workers. And now we're seeing that closed, and we're seeing it closed with them being one of the first to be imposed with a mandatory vaccination.
So what are you concerned about here? Are you concerned about the way the mandates were announced or the mandate themselves?
Yeah, so I think the process has been wrong. I think what we called for right from the very beginning is we had issues where in hotel quarantine that those workers, they needed to be mandated and vaccinated first. Our healthcare workers, aged care workers, they were certainly the key focal point, and we still haven't got that right. So that should have been something the government should be working on. We don't believe that every industry should be mandatory vaccinated. People are fronting up. People are actually doing the right thing by and large. We can't force everybody for a mandatory vaccination. That is not what we're suggesting. But certainly, let's get the healthcare workers vaccinated. Let's encourage everybody else to do the right thing. We're getting close to those targets. What we would expect is the government to hold up their end of the bargain once we reach those targets, to open up, and to open up similar to what we've seen in New South Wales and in line with the National Cabinet guidelines.
So,
and that's
so
not
your
what's being
problem
followed.
is at 70%, there's just simply not enough freedom on offer. Is that what's frustrating people?
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely that. The fact that, we can't have... Retail will only be open if you can do it outdoors. You still can't get your haircuts. You still can't open up cafes and what have you unless you've got 10 people outside. The 70 is effectively... is the 80-70, if you look at what New South Wales are doing, we should be doing similar in Victoria. And the fact that we're not doing that just simply is devastating to many Victorians that have experienced the longest lockdown ever. Well, tomorrow we've got the a public holiday for the grand final, where we normally have a fantastic parade. Well, that parade's cancelled. Many of those businesses won't be able to operate. It'll be a ghost town in the city in Melbourne, and the grand final will be played in Western Australia for a second year in a row, where the grand final will be played out of Melbourne. If that's not telling us something in terms of there's clearly something wrong in Victoria, I don't know what is.
Well, you're looking at a fourth day of protests. I mean, Melbourne is becoming the Paris of Australia.
Oh, look, it is heartbreaking to such a proud and passionate Victorian that I am, and many that I know. We pride ourselves, Victorians by and large are very passionate. The New South Wales-Victorian rivalry has always been an interesting one. But, to think that our state has been ruined the way that it is through the lack of leadership is absolutely heartbreaking. It
David,
really is.
It sounds like you have a fair bit of empathy for these protesters today. What do you say to them?
Well, go home. I mean, I don't think protest does anything, particularly the way those protesters have handled themselves, and you see, no one likes the violence that we are seeing. I mean, I think that's appalling, quite frankly. But ultimately, I can say that for every protester that is out there, there are thousands of people at home that are doing the right thing, but probably feel equally as gutted at the moment because their lives have been literally taken away. Their freedoms have been taken away. Their kids are not at school, and all the things that they're used to is being taken away solely in Victoria. If it was happening right across the board, you'd accept it. But why Victoria? Why is Victoria so bad? Why have we not got it right in Victoria and we've got it right in other states and in other countries? And I think that's what has really disappointed most Victorians, and it's why we feel so gutted at the moment.